Tonight, Zuckerberg's private meetings in D.C. exposed, and Trump's lawyer Michael Cohen gets raided by the FBI. Hi, I'm Craig, and welcome to Just Informed Talk. First, I want to thank each and every one of you for joining me here today. Special thank you to each and every one of you who have hit the subscribe button. I really thank each and every one of you, and without you, this channel would not be possible. So if you have not hit the subscribe button, please come here to this landing page and click the big red subscribe button. Make sure you hit the bell for notifications. That way, you'll be notified as soon as these videos get posted, because as soon as information is made available to me, I will make it available to you. Now, before we jump into the latest Q posts, and there's a lot there, we have to talk about some breaking news that just popped onto the radar here. So apparently, the FBI has raided Michael Cohen, who is Michael Cohen's office, who is Trump's lawyer, the man who is allegedly responsible for the payment made to Stormy Daniels back a few years ago as a payment to keep her quiet. She signed an NDA, a non-disclosure agreement, and took a settlement. And this woman is just a sick individual, in my opinion. She was, if you look at her interview on 60 Minutes, she's beady-eyed out, and I'm not going to get onto a rant about Stormy Daniels, but this is just breaking. So they went in, they had a search warrant that was in part put out because of a referral from special counsel Robert Mueller, the guy who's supposed to be running a Russian investigation, but now has turned into a Trump's personal life. Let's invade it and see what dirt we can pull up there. Completely, and I just have to start by saying this. Okay, look. This is so outside of the realm of what is acceptable, in my opinion, for a federal agency to be used by political motives, with political motives, in order to raid the lawyer's office who represents Donald Trump, thereby a clear violation of the attorney-client privilege and all types of different violations of personal rights that obviously would protect Cohen from being a target in this investigation. And what does this have to do with Russia? Absolutely nothing. And it just baffles me to think that we're talking about an alleged affair from 2006, which the woman who is now alleging that she had the affair put out many statements saying categorically she didn't have an affair, and then came out after that because she's obviously a liar, if that's true, that she did have an affair. So the liar came out and wanted to tell us about how she did all this stuff and gave this awful interview where she just basically goes into how her and Trump had some affair back in 2006. Now, this is the epitome of what we look at as being the illegal use of the FBI against a sitting president by the deep state in order to get him thrown out of office. I mean, and then you have people like this Joy Reid, who is a sick individual. She's a racist, and I can say that she is a racist because I'm a pretty mild Christian guy, but when you read her vitriol and her just complete hatred of other races and complete dispersion against races in general, it's amazing. I've actually retweeted her stuff, or actually responded to her on Twitter and said, you know, you're basically a racist. You're the classic definition of a racist, and Joy Reid is just the sickest human being there is on MSNBC, in my opinion. And now she's coming out and talking about how she's asked, what if Trump refuses to be arrested by federal marshals, referring to a Mueller subpoena that may be coming forth, that if Trump refuses, how would they react? Well, they send this federal marshals to go pick up the sitting president of the United States, the commander-in-chief of our country. I mean, this is maddening. Okay, and I can't express to you guys, we'll get into the Q post. I know I'm going on about this for a second, but this is the breaking news, and I wanted to bring it to you first here on Just Informed Talk. Obviously, Trump is under attack right now, and so is Michael Cohen, so we need to send our prayers to them, and we'll just wait and see how excessive this abuse of the FBI's powers when they went and raided the president's attorney's office and stole illegally documents that they should never be allowed to access. Okay? All about who paid Stormy Daniels, a porn star from 10 plus years ago, an alleged affair. This is crossing so many lines, but I'm going to leave it for you in the comments. And we're going to get right into Q post now because I've taken far too much time even addressing it, but it is definitely worth addressing as what we are seeing is unprecedented by so many standards. Now, Q goes on here. He says, Christmas in D.C., District of Columbia, Washington. Who is arranging the private meetings? Mark Zuckerberg campaign contribution promises. Facebook donations since April 2nd, 2018. Fresh round. Republicans targeted. Censorship / anti-Republican equals more money. How to mask. Mark Zuckerberg personal donations. Shell Company. Recent stock dump. Avoid Facebook public disclosure. Track congressional intake reported. Keep open plus 6 months. Loud with findings. Retweet how DC swamp works. And I want to say it's retweet. I don't think it's Rex Tillerson, and I don't think it's talking about Russian TV. Money talks. Drain the swamp. How do politicians access campaign contributions for personal use? The quote-unquote con. Q. Okay, so what Q is saying here is we have Mark Zuckerberg, and he's getting ready to testify. But he's pointing to the fact that Mark Zuckerberg dumped about $500 million in Facebook stock in early February. And how does this relate to what Q is saying here? He's saying that Mark Zuckerberg has started a whole new round of contributions and donations to key political figures who are going to be probably mostly the ones who are going to be interrogating him on Capitol Hill during his two congressional he's going to testify in front of 2 congressional committees. Now, this is what they're doing. It says, how do they mask it? Well, Mark Zuckerberg has personal donations he can make, and then he can make donations through a shell company. And he got all that money through he's using the cash that he just got from the $500 million Facebook stock dump to finance it and to buy this favor, allegedly, in Washington, D.C. Now, he's trying to avoid the public disclosure of how you put in, because there's Facebook, you can go, here's a great site, you can go to opensecrets.org, and you can actually look through the personal contributions that Facebook's made. They've already made in 2018, it seems, $267,000 worth of contributions to House representatives and senators. And this is obviously buying political influence. And then if you couple that with the fact that you have him giving personal donations and then also using shell companies to make donations, this number could be 5 or 10 times what this is. And this is how they buy political influence. And this is how they're going to buy easy questions, and they're going to buy the Mark Zuckerberg's freedom, basically, or his vindication by the U.S. Senate so he doesn't have to be investigated further. So that's what they're going to do. That's what they are doing right now, according to Q. And it says we need to be loud with our findings, and we need to look at the 6 months plus what's been going on. And we're going to drain the swamp. But it says here at the end, how do politicians access campaign contributions for personal use? The con. Q. So one way I know that they access their own personal campaign contributions is quite easy. They can establish let's say they can establish a nonprofit, right? And you can get all your buddies to donate. So I'll donate to your nonprofit. You donate to my nonprofit. Campaign money that's left over from an election cycle, right? Because that's one of the ways that they can get rid of money at the end of an election cycle. So if there's any money left over in the campaign coffers, they can actually turn around and donate it to a nonprofit. So say, let's just take 2 random senators. I'm not saying that they've done this. I'm just using them as examples here. Let's say Nancy Pelosi and Chuck Schumer. Let's say Nancy has $500,000 left. I'm just throwing out random numbers. And she gives it to, and she wants to take that for herself. Well, she sets up a 501(c) nonprofit organization, and then she asks her friend Chuck Schumer, hey, do you have any money left over? And Chuck goes, hey, yeah, I got $500,000 left over in my campaign coffer. And they go, okay, well, I'll give your nonprofit, this is Chuck Schumer speaking, to Nancy Pelosi, here's $500,000 for your nonprofit, saving the puppies and kittens, whatever it may be. This is all an example. I'm not telling you that any of this has actually happened. And they give that to that nonprofit, which they so happen. So Chuck Schumer gives it to Nancy Pelosi's nonprofit, where she just so happens to sit on the board and take a salary from that nonprofit. Well, how do they pay that salary? Well, they're going to pay it with the $500,000 that was just given by Chuck Schumer. So then in turn, Nancy Pelosi turns around and says, oh, Chuck Schumer, your organization called, Save the Whales from Arctic polar bears, whatever it may be, they'll say, okay, here's $500,000 for you. And then, of course, Chuck sits on the board at that nonprofit, and then he takes a salary for his efforts there to save whales from Arctic polar bears. And then you have this easy exchange. Now, that's one way they can do it. There's about a dozen other ways they can do it. So it's not hard to get money out of politics, out of political campaigns. There's so many loopholes that they use quite often. And I think that kind of goes in there. If you guys have any other thoughts on this, please let me know. And if you can track the exact congressional input and what's happened since April 2nd, I still haven't yet. There's a lot of research to be done, so I'm just getting into some of the research here. But I can tell you right now that since April 2nd, we need to look at who's given what by Mark Zuckerberg himself and by companies that could be shell companies of Zuckerberg. Now, Q in the next one responds to himself here. It says, follow the family, reread drops. Well, what happens if we go and reread the drops is this is what we pick up. There's one place where it's mentioned that makes complete sense to me. It says, distress calls to others will do you, family, no good at this stage. We know where you, the family, are at all times and can hear you breathing. Q. And that is Linda Rothschild, I think, is who they're referring to. Now, who is Lynn? She actually put out this post back in February talking about Facebook and Russiagate. She says, time to fully expose the complicity of Facebook in Russiagate and also tell every user what they saw that originated from Russia. Mueller's indictment give enough detail at Facebook to do their duty to their customers. Oh, yeah. So Linda Rothschild, this woman from the Rothschild family who, in my opinion, is most likely evil as an individual. I mean, seriously, just look up the Rothschilds and what they've been alleged of doing. That she's actually calling on Facebook to go and expose the Russiagate and tell everybody who, do like kind of a Twitter thing where they send you an email and say, you're a Russian bot. Kind of the same exact thing they wanted here. And obviously, I think what Q's pointing to here for us to look at is if we follow the family, we'll understand that there's this whole nexus between the Clintons and the Rothschilds and Zuckerberg and Jack Dorsey. So what do they all have in common? The Dorseys and the Zuckerbergs and the Rothschilds and the Clintons, well, they're all working against us in order to enrich themselves at our expense. Now, how do they do that? Well, they do it in several different ways, and Q's pointing here exactly how they do it. They buy influence on the Hill. The reports are going to come out now that Zuckerberg's been following us and tracking everything we do through his Facebook act because we signed an agreement, a user agreement that said that most people probably didn't read. I know I didn't even take the time to go and read through their contract, their agreement that we put accept to before we start our account. So I'm just as guilty as everyone else, but there is going to be class action lawsuits, as Q points out in the next one. Now, Q talking to himself here, replying to his own post, saying, people have power. Don't forget how to play. Together you are strong. Facebook violation of your privacy. Facebook actively tracking you. Facebook reading your private messages. Facebook censoring. Anti-conservative. More will drop. We have it all. Class action lawsuits are effective. Global. At Jack, you're next. What is Jack's secret Twitter handle? Dummy accounts to talk? What you see is limited. Think emails. Loretta Lynch, Hillary Clinton, Hussein, etc. Q. Okay, so what Q's painting out here is a very disturbing picture. He's painting the picture of this, okay, that we are involved in the most high-profile case of fraud that there ever has been, and that the Facebook app and the Facebook community, their technical capabilities, has been always meant to just track you, and they read your private messages and they censor dissenting opinions. Now, in what world is any of that fair? They violate your privacy, they track you and sell your data to big advertisers, they read your private messages, and then they censor you, if you're conservative, of course. Now, that's what Q is pointing out here as being the what's on the surface, what we can see. But what we can't see, there's a lot more going on beneath the surface, and that's when we get into Jack Dorsey, the CEO of Twitter, where it says that he's next. He's on Q's radar, and it says that he's actually using a secret Twitter handle that I would love to find out. If you guys hear anything, please post it in the comments about what Jack's secret Twitter handle may be. I've looked and done a lot of research so far, just ancillary stuff, and I haven't found much about it. But I think when he says think emails, the Loretta Lynch and HRC, the Hussein emails, the 33,000 that were deleted, the whole scandal and controversy behind that, could you imagine if we could prove that Jack Dorsey was using some dummy Twitter account to communicate messages to people of power or an influence, and then in that same way, those messages may turn out to be something incredibly incriminating or unethical or immoral. Now, if we look at just what Jack's already done, there's been quite a fuss about him retweeting an article that calls for the Democrats to enact a new civil war. Now, I don't know about you, but first of all, let's just make it very clear. If there were a civil war, and I'm not endorsing it, I don't want one, I don't plan on us ever having one, but if there were, the weakest people that exist are the people on the left. The weakest minds, the weakest abilities, the weakest, just in every category you can imagine. They don't stand a chance. So it's just kind of comical to me to hear Jack think he's going to get the zombies that he's created to go and start a civil war when he's broken them down into basically soy slurping zombie creatures that have no idea of what real men and women can do when put to action. So I feel bad for them if they were to ever attempt that. That would be just let's put it this way. It would not be good for them. And I'm going to leave it there because I don't want to get into a whole rant about that. But the next one, an AN0N posts here. He says, not mine, no Facebook. And he winks at Q. And then Q says, you are being tracked. No Facebook account required. This is bigger than you think. Agencies attached, Q. And then to this, another AN0N post back, he says, you are being tracked? No Facebook account required? What the expletive? It is embedded in Android operating system? This is bigger than you think. Agencies attached. Now, Q goes on to say, think bridge, Google, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, central algorithm. The stage had to be set, Q. Now, the one thing I found in my research was this company, right? And it's called the Bridge of Internet Friends. And it's basically working on bridge theory in connecting people who have connections on different social media networks across the internet. And it's weird because Jack Dorsey talks a lot about how the Golden Gate Bridge is an example of where the country is heading, the California and the technology is heading in the future. Just talking about how it's been constructed and it's being a gateway to a whole other part of the world or whatever. And not even worth going through his stupid analogies for what he says the bridge is going to be. But it's interesting that he used that example. He has photos of him climbing the Golden Gate Bridge, and that this company, the Bridge, has as their picture the San Francisco Golden Gate Bridge as their background logo picture here. And if you look at what this company is trying to do, they're trying to take everything you do on the internet and bridge it together so that it's in one easily searched database. Well, what does that sound like to you? That sounds like exactly the dystopian centralized algorithms that were censoring and put together to basically, they're enacting all this before the 2018 election. And this is their last push. And Q says that basically, he says, look, this is the last push that they're going to make in order to destroy any dissenting opinions on the right or conservative or libertarian, anything that we have to contribute that does not adhere to the strict narrative that they're trying to put forth, they're going to silence and they're going to shadow ban and they're going to use the internet, the way that the internet works, to connect it all and then to lay out this attack on freedom of speech in this country. Now, Q goes on to say, and if you guys want to do more research on the bridge, let me know what you think. I'm just doing this kind of, like I said, this is an ancillary report where I'm just trying to get the facts out to you as they become available. Now it says, class action lawsuits are very effective. 2 billion people, global, scale, regulation or kill. People have the power to decide Q. So he's telling us that there's class action lawsuits. I've seen many that are being posted and promoted, many different places where law firms are actually putting together class action lawsuits as we speak for the 2 billion people who've been affected by this Facebook scandal where they're taking all your data and illegally giving it out, in my opinion. It says the scale is global. And then Q asks us a very important question. Do we regulate Facebook or do we just get rid of it altogether? And then he says it's our decision to make, that we have the power to make that decision. So I don't know. Let me know what you guys think. Should we regulate Facebook or should we just get rid of it altogether? Because there are so many reports coming out about the dangers and the side effects and the unintended consequences of using Facebook on our children, that it's really an important issue that we have to think about. Do we really want this for our children? Do we really want them to just become mindless zombies that can be controlled by the tech overlords in California? That's a real question. All right, now the next Q post. It says, Syria hold until confirmation. Military assets on the ground locked out of Gaza, I think. Israel strike harmed ability to prove events. Clown report must be verified. Troop unwind to still occur. Have faith. Trust POTUS Q. This is very important. Everything we've seen with the Syria chem attacks, if you guys want to go through what we talked about the chem attacks, go back here and check out these last 2 videos if you want to get more information on the chemical attacks that I go through in the last post. But the long story short on that is that, you have this awful chemical attack in Syria where it is reported that a lot of people, maybe 70 plus, lost their lives to, it was a chlorine gas attack, I believe. Now it's come out, and it's not, I have no verification of this, but it's alleged that the chlorine gas that was used was produced in, I believe, France by Merck. So that's definitely interesting. That's something that we need to look at and see where that came from and try to verify that information. But he's talking here about the fact that Israel actually counterstrike. They sent a bunch of missiles over into that area, and it's basically preventing POTUS from being able, and other military intelligence operators from being able to verify who actually set off this chemical attack. Was it the Syrians? Was it the Iranians? Was it the Russians? Was it all of them together? Was it some outside actor like ISIS who just wanted to frame them to start a bigger war? Or was it deep state? We're only pointing out that there's many different stories that could be true, and we have to figure out which one is verifiable. Now, that is definitely telling us that Trump's getting a report from the clowns, right? He can't trust the clowns. He has to send military intelligence in to verify what they say. Because as far as the clowns are concerned, they hate Trump. They want him out. You can put Pompeo in control. You can put anybody you want in control. But there's certain factions that do not get replaced even when a new administration comes in. And those actors are the same deep state people who have been fighting Trump with Mueller and all this stuff from the beginning. So if you think about it, there's obviously lots of verification that needs to happen. And that's kind of where I stood with it, is that, you have to verify who did this and why. And you may never get a why, but you have to at least attempt to figure out why it was done. Because as I said in my last video, there is no strategic value to Assad doing this. I mean, what would be the purpose? Let me just chemically attack a random region with no strategic value, and no strategic value to me as far as strategy, and all that will happen is that the global empires can come and just wage a bigger war in there, and it's an excuse for more troops to be brought in. Well, that's what they want. They want to put 500 or 50 or 100 or 500,000 troops into Syria, just like we did in Iraq. They want to start another war because guess who makes money when we start these wars? It's not the American people. We lose our blood and our treasure in these conquests of the Middle East that should never happen in the first place. There is a difference between protecting people, like Sebastian Gorka said today. He did a live chat on, or a live post on Facebook, where he goes through the fact that, look, there's a big difference between having 2,000 troops in Syria in order to try to stabilize and save as many lives as we can without becoming an invasion force and trying to basically destroy the whole country and get what we got in Iraq. There's a big difference between having that and then having 50,000 or 100,000 troops as a full-scale invasion. It's totally different game. And you have to trust POTUS, I think, here. You have to trust what he's going to do, that he is going to pull down the troops and that he is not looking to expand this into a global conflict. He is trying to de-escalate, and the deep state and the bad actors are trying to escalate this as quickly as they can to cover up all their crimes that are being exposed, just right here on the Q boards. Just right here, the human trafficking, the sex with kids, the Luciferianism, the Satanism, the global elites racket on all of these illegal activities and just evil activities is being exposed. So what's the best way to cover it up? You have a giant war, right? That would be the best way to cover it up. So that's my opinion on it. You guys let me know what you think in the comments. The next one says, an AN0N post. He says, weird that you can't get eyes on. Suspect as expletive. Then he says here, Q responds, he says, satellite imagery plus eye in the sky are not definitive. Q. So he's basically telling you, look, we can look at it from a satellite all day, right? We can have eyes in the sky, meaning drones flying real time and see what's going on there. But until we get people on the ground to investigate where the weapon came from, who fired it, verify the deaths, verify the things that are going on. I mean, Trump's already come out on his Twitter and blamed Assad very directly, calling him an animal and talking about how Russia's supporting them. It's really, I think that's just the outward appearance he wants. He has to look strong when he comes to this stuff. He cannot look weak. And if you couple that with the fact that there is stuff going on behind the scenes and you haven't seen any major conflicts yet, you haven't seen any major assault or attacks back in retribution, and you haven't seen the call for tens of thousands of troops to be shipped off to Syria, this is a good thing, okay? They're taking their time and they're trying to verify. Now, the next one. This is a picture of a Drudge Report where it says Iran threat to restart nukes, okay? It was one of his big headlines today. Now he says, Q says in response to this, like clockwork, you have been prepared, Q. So what he's saying is it's the exact same thing as when Trump gets on his Twitter and says we're going to withdraw from Syria, right? And we're going to pull down the troops, and we don't really want to start a global conflict there. The next day, maybe a couple days after, you have a large chemical attack that takes place on the exact 1-year anniversary of the last chemical attack, which caused Trump to have to fire many cruise missiles into Syria to target an airfield. And then you have the Israelis responding in kind without even really giving clear verification of anything that happened other than to say we targeted the airfield where we suspect that the chemical weapon came from. Okay. Does that mean that it's verified, or does that just mean that you guys have something to say, or you guys are trying to cover up something? I don't know, okay? I think Israel's fine. They're a good country. I think that, of the many countries in the Middle East, they're one of the ones that we should certainly support because they are more moderate and they aren't as fundamentally extreme. But that's not to say that I turn a blind eye to everything they do or I'm an apologist for their regime. Obviously, things are happening behind the scenes that none of us are privy to, and that we have to be aware of the implications of those things that are happening behind the scenes. So let's just say this. He's telling us here, Q, that it's like clockwork. This is the same thing. As soon as we start in this whole new chemical attack, we have Iran making threats. So they want a war. They want wars in Syria and they want wars in Iran. That's their next big thing. They want to go there because they need the money. That the military-industrial complex would fall apart without these wars abroad that have been going on for so long. There would be no funding left. You couldn't justify the amount of funding that they take if they didn't have these conflicts. So you couldn't justify a peacetime presence in our own country and several countries around the world peacefully holding bases to warrant the trillions of dollars that they get. And the trillions of dollars they get in black money that we never even know where it goes, right? So this is certainly important. So I hope you guys take a minute to look at this story a little bit closer and try to figure out if Q is right here and that this is a direct response to everything, the increasing tensions and the draw to start another war in the Middle East. So they say if we can't do it in Syria, we'll certainly do it in Iran. But we were prepared. We were told this well in advance that Iran's the next one after we neutered, and that's a term I've been using about North Korea. We neutered Kim Jong-un. Now we have back before Q was telling us North Korea taken care of, Iran next. And now lo and behold, Iran's threatening to restart its nuke program. Just unbelievable. I want to hear what you guys have to think in the comments. So the next post we're going to look at by Q is this one where he gives a picture or a post link to this Donald Trump. We already watched this in another video, so I will not play it back for you, but I will tell you that it basically goes over the illegality of what's going on in California, and Trump is encouraging lawmakers to stand up to what's going on there. Now, with that in mind, reading the Q post, it says, California targeted. How often does POTUS retweet weekly address? April showers, Q. So I don't think he ever really usually retweets his weekly address, but he's retweeted it now, and it's fairly obvious that he is looking to shut down what's going on in California. It is obviously connected to the political elite. It's obviously connected to the fact that they're one of the largest economies in the world, obviously connected to Silicon Valley and what's going on with Mark Zuckerberg and Jack Dorsey and others with Google, or Larry Page. And this is obviously, and Eric Schmidt, I should say, and this is obviously all being taken down as we speak, and we're in the process of doing it, but we have to get together. We have to do things. We have to be active. I mean, that's the reality. We have to do things like join the class action lawsuit against Zuckerberg. We have to do things like become active and support our local candidates who support Trump and support logical and fair-minded reason in government. This is really an important call to action to every one of us. We have to jump on board and get with Trump. Now, I'm going to read a little quote here in a bit, but from what we're going to talk about at the end. But first, I want to say thank you so much to everybody who has come here and subscribed. If you're looking for a way to contribute to the channel, the easiest way, and it's free to you and it helps me out incredibly, is if you have not hit the subscribe button yet, come here to this landing page and click the big red subscribe button. Make sure you hit the bell for notifications so you get notified as soon as these videos get posted. Also, another great way you can contribute, which is one of my favorites, is if you go down and leave a comment. Each one of these videos becomes basically a QAnon research board in the comment section where we have thousands of comments from incredibly smart people who follow this channel. Some just follow to get down in the comments and start learning about what's going on with the latest Q posts, because a lot of information is put together there where we can look at everything and even go in depth and detail on certain things and then share it as a community. So I always go through and I read through all the comments and I try to highlight the ones that I think are really helpful, and then you guys have these great discussions down there. So even if you can't go down and comment, just go read through the comments, because you're going to learn, I guarantee you'll learn something you didn't know coming into this video. So that's a great way to contribute. But if you're looking for another way to contribute, please come over here to my Just Informed Talk Patreon page. That's Patreon, patreon.com, and you can search Just Informed Talk right here. Click the big red button to become a patron. I'm so thankful to everybody who has contributed, and I need all the help I can get thank you so much for everybody in advance who was going to come here and check this out. I need all the help I can get, so you can come check out my rewards and my goal and contribute if you can. I really need your help, so thank you to everybody. And thank you to everybody who has contributed already. Now that that's out of the way, what I want to talk about today is, obviously, I've been having a great time reading Bible verses here at the end and then sharing a little insight into what I believe we need to look at in these times, which are so troubling, when God's grace is ignored by so many people, and there's such evil in so many people's hearts, and that as we as Christians have to embrace what's good. But this is a quote here from 2 Timothy chapter 2, and verses are kind of intertwined here, but you guys can look this up. It's in the beginning of chapter 2, and it says, quote, "Be strong in the grace that is in Christ Jesus, and what you have heard from me in the presence of many witnesses, commit to faithful men who will be able to teach others also. Share in suffering as a good soldier of Christ Jesus. To please the recruiter, no one serving as a soldier gets entangled in the concerns of everyday life. Consider what I say, for the Lord will give you understanding in everything." And that's pretty simple, but it's pretty profound in what it's saying here. What it's telling us is that we have to fight against evil. That's the duty that God calls us to. And however you get recruited into that battle, the people who are usually doing the recruiting, they're not worried about their own day-to-day lives. They're not worried about what's going on in their own little world of problems. They look at the bigger picture to serve the greatest God that there is, the Lord Jesus Christ, our Savior. So take with you this, that we all share in this suffering together, but what delivers us from that suffering is the Lord, and He will in time give you understanding in everything. So please remember, if you're having doubt about what we're doing here, put your faith in God. Say a prayer. Seek His wisdom and His guidance and His incredible power and strength to push you into whatever direction you need to be in order to be successful in this battle against evil. So I really want you, if you don't take anything else away from this episode, please just remember that. And just remember that there's so much more here than meets the eye, that we all have to believe in God and we have to believe in His power to defeat evil, because that's the key to winning this battle. So thank you all for watching. Again, if you have not hit the subscribe button, please come here to this page, click the big red subscribe button, hit the bell for notifications. But that's going to be it for this episode. Until next time, which I know there's going to be a next time, maybe even tonight we might have more Q posts. So look forward to that. But that's going to be it for me. I want to say thank you for watching. I'm Craig. This is Just Informed Talk. Godspeed and God bless, Patriots.